being in existence for 3,000 years. And each of them would have had different varieties and different manners in which they depicted those people who had made their transition. This one does not have the base for it, but you're seeing the lid, and there's several of them here, right? This one here is made out of a really a hard stone known as basalt. That one's limestone there, right? Beautiful though. Imagine actually being entombed in something like this. That would have hopefully it would have looked a bit like you. And this is one of the ways that you make your journey into the afterlife. Absolutely amazing that these sorts of things occurred when our Kemetic ancestors were trying to describe how they were going to go into the afterlife.
So was there a concept of cremation at all?
Cremation is not something that we see very often in the ancient African world. Usually what happens is you'd be entombed, you'd be buried, and your body would be preserved forever. The symbolic concept is that you would come back for your body because you would need it in the afterlife. Is that because you want to be cremated? Yep. I knew it. She looked a little disappointed. She was like, man, are you telling me that my ancestors didn't do that? Yeah, my father and I had a long debate about him being cremated. I was trying to convince him not to be cremated. And after a while, I felt like I was convincing. I was like, why am I convincing him to do what he wants to do with his own body? So finally, we cremated him.
I see the noses off of this movie.
Yeah, of a lot of them.
What do you think about those noses missing?
They talk about Napoleon. I heard stories about Napoleon's men shooting them off or something, or is that true? I don't know.
The question is might this happen even during a period when Napoleon was in power? Let me say this to you. I don't believe that Napoleon actually removed the nose of the Herald Market, because there's some drawings earlier than he got there that seem to say that the nose was already removed.
I also heard that the reason why they removed them because you breathe in life, basically you breathe in air, so that was a kind of a disrespectful sign and cut off your ability to bring life to yourself.
Yeah.
You know Frank Snowden, the book Black and Antiquity.
Sure.
I'll never forget. He was at LaSalle Villanova University doing a presentation, and we argued him down because he said that's a bunch of crap. The reason why their noses are broken off is because the statues fell over. He would hold his position.
They all just fell over at one time.
Well, let me say this to you. The noses are probably missing for lots of reasons, right? There's not just one reason. And so sometimes I think we're looking for one reason. Of course, some of those noses fell off because in antiquity something happened and the nose sticks out and it was broken. We know that happened, right?
The beard
We
is
know
broken
that happened.
too.
Yeah, the
The
beard
beard is
too.
broken too. We also know that some of this happens because people who were stealing were doing precisely what Queen just said. They were thinking, well, if I'm stealing something and this person is sitting here, they're going to come after me. So I'm going to do something so that they're unable to exist and operate. We know that that's a cost as well. However, the third one is one that we also know. And we know that one of the most clarifying signifiers of an African is those deep, juicy lips and that wide nose. And we also know that that is part of the desecration that occurred. So it's not just that there's one answer, but we can't say the other one didn't happen because we know that happened too, right? So this is all part of what you'll see in museums. Very often the nose is missing.
If you go through this museum and look at the Greeks and the Romans, you're going to see missing noses.
You'll see missing noses there too, for sure. So it's not just that people were trying to desecrate Africans.
I just wanted to throw this in there because I had a cinder block and I chipped it with a chisel and a hammer for somebody's memorial. And the way I was chipping it and chiseling it looks just like that. It looks exactly like that before I finished
someone
it.
actually did some damage.
But,
Sometimes that's
because
what
this
happened,
right here,
yeah. Sometimes that's what happens.
That looks
Sometimes
intentional.
people actually, sure. But what I'm saying is that there are a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
One of them, yes, is because the most identifying feature of an African is their nose.
In your
Before we
research,
move to another area of the museum, I want you to just look at this great lady right here. Are you seeing her in bronze?
Yeah.
That's not Aset. Who do you think that
I'm
is?
sorry.
Don't just read it. Tell me who you think it is. Who is it? Don't just read it. You come back and read it when you're not here. Teasing you. Neat. Well, you know there's some ringers, right? You know there's some ringers. You know, Sinette Brittany is a ringer, right? So anyway, this is Neat. What do we know about Neat? Sometimes called Neith. What do we know about her? Nothing? Well, at least listen. When I say what do we know about her, you may not know everything about her, but there's some things you know about her. We mentioned that Asar was wearing one crown, right? Which crown is that again? Yes. So Asar is actually wearing a version of the white crown that relates to where? The north. Say again? Okay. I'm sorry, say again. The white crown relates to what is called Upper Kemet. Today that would be considered Southern Kemet. Okay? And this crown relates to what is called Lower Kemet, but it is in what we would call today the North. Confusing? No. Why in the world would Upper Kemet be in the South and Lower Kemet be in the North?
Because the
way the
river flows
river
the opposite
flows.
direction.
Because the river flows from north to, yeah, maybe. But I think there's another good reason. One of the other reasons why we have to acknowledge that the Kemetic people may have been orienting themselves differently is because they were actually putting the place where they arrived, where they originated, at the top of the world. Can I just mention that two of our esteemed elders, okay, but I still have to mention the dear queen who has come here. Listen, folks, I want you to recognize that sometimes you have an opportunity to commune with, to study with, to get to know folks who have done so much over the course of decades that their work itself allows you to do the work that you do. Does that make sense? That without their journey decades ago, where would you be? I don't even know if we would be here. And so we know that this esteemed couple, the queen is here, Dr. Rosalind Jeffries. Can we please recognize her and give her some love? I'm telling you, the doctors Jeffrey, and you'll see Dr. Leonard Jeffries will be back in a moment. They have done so much over the years. When I speak to Dr. Jeffries, sometimes we'll be getting off the phone or whatever, and he'll say something. I'll be like, what? You were with who? He was just telling the story about Dr. Clark and Haile Selassie. I was like, Dr. Clark met Haile Selassie? And then the people on the call were like, Jabari, we said the call was over. Why are you starting another conversation with Dr. J? But that's the kind of life that they've lived. All of those incredible Africans that we know are ancestors now that did great work, they were either with them or they assisted them. And so that is why we must recognize, I can only say I am so honored that they've come here. And I think we also have to recognize Brother Charles, who has been the person, the younger man. He's the young man next to them, of course, but you know that we're not as young as we used to be, right, Brother Charles? You know what I mean? Who has always been by their side and assisting. So I want you to give both of them some love. And of course, when Dr. J comes back, we'll give him some love as well. Okay? So we were talking about Neat, right? One of the things that's interesting about Neat is that she is a warrior deity. I know somebody's saying, but she's a woman. I know, she's a warrior deity. She's one of those that gets it in. In fact, sometimes you see her fighting with what looks like knitting needles. I think that the term to knit may actually be a reference to her. Because the things that she fights with looks like two needles. Does anyone know what part of the cardinal point she would be represented by? I'm gonna ask that question again and look at my priests and the initiates and say, somebody better have, look at that. He's like, oh, he's coming over here. Some of these deities are connected to cardinal points. Meat is one of them. We're going to talk about this great lady with the red crown of the north, of lower heaven in a moment, and my priests are going to tell me which direction she fits in. Okay? Yes, they both standing together so we can both give them an uncomfortable glare right there. Look at the priest. So what are some of the things that you see when you see people like this? We're going to continue to move. What are the things that you continue to see? I know that's I'm giving you a moment to. So what are you seeing here? What do you think you're seeing? Thoughts?